Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make an ice-dyed vertical fan fold shirt. I prepped the shirt like normal and I have it turned inside out. I'm going to begin my design by centering the shirt, and this process is going to go pretty fast. But I have a link down below in the description for this video for another video which shows how to center a shirt. Essentially what I'm doing is getting both sides of the front of the shirt right next to each other and both sides of the back of the shirt next to each other. That way whenever I apply the dye to the shirt, both sides of the front of the shirt are going to look pretty similar, and the same thing for the back. Okay, so now that I have the shirt centered, I would like to do some vertical fan folds in the shirt. I want to make the fan folds just about the same size, so I'm using a ruler and making marks to use as guidelines when I do my folds. You can put as many folds in the shirt as you'd like to. Now I'm going to use the guidelines to make my fan folds in the shirt. I'm going to try to keep the folds flat and smooth out any wrinkles as I go. You may have heard this technique either referred to as fan folds or accordion folds. It's basically the same thing. I'm just folding the shirt back and forth like I would if I were folding a paper fan. When I get to the sleeve area, I'm going to fan fold the sleeves into the rest of the shirt. So from here I can tie the shirt however I want to, but I'm going to choose to kind of randomly tie the shirt with sinew. What the sinew is going to do is put some definition lines in the shirt. I'm going to tie some diagonal lines with the sinew, and I'm going to tie some straight lines with the sinew on the shirt. Like I said, I kind of just want to be a little bit random with it and make a more random design on the shirt. As I'm tying the sinew lines, I want to make sure I keep my fan folds in place. I didn't use any this time, but you can put like some either clothespins or some sort of clips on the shirt to keep the folds in place. Okay, so I'm going to continue folding the shirt. And then once it's totally and completely folded, I'm going to put it aside for a few days and let it dry out completely. I prefer to dye designs like this that are pretty thick. When they're totally dry, I tend to get better color saturation in the middle of the shirt. Dyeing a thick design like this while it's totally dry can help keep from getting some of the big white lines in the middle of the shirt that aren't saturated really well. If you'd like to have a little bit more information about why I like to dye thick designs like this dry, I have a blog post out on my website, and there's a link to my website down below in the description. So for this shirt, I'm going to both ice and liquid dye it. And I've started by making myself an ice barrier or a little ice boat out of aluminum foil. I'm going to begin by ice dyeing the shirt with 4 different shades of Pro Chemical Blue. I'm starting with Sapphire Blue, followed by Alpine, Brightest Blue, and Basic Blue. When I apply the dye to the shirt, I'm not necessarily going to follow each individual sinew line. I'm going to apply the dye to several different sinew sections at one time. I'm going to repeat this dye pattern down the shirt until the entire shirt is covered in dye. Then I'm going to add the ice on top of the dye and add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top. I put the shirt aside and allowed a little bit of the ice to melt, but before all of the ice was melted, I came back and I added some liquid dye that I had mixed up down into my dye boat. I can tell that I have some dye down below in my container, so I think my foil is probably leaking. I'm going to go ahead and add the liquid dye to the foil though. I don't think the leak is huge at this point. However, keep watching because it gets bigger. I'm adding Feeling Jaded by Dharma and Heads or Teals from Dharma. Both of those are the special spring muck colors that they had, so they may no longer be available. I had about a half a cup of each of these colors of dye mixed up because I made some color swatches with them. After I added the liquid dye, I went ahead and added a second layer of ice. I put the shirt aside and I allowed the second layer of ice to melt. As you can see from this photo, there is a whole lot of dye down below in the container now. And when I took the shirt out of the foil, you can see all of the little holes in the foil. So soda ash will eat through foil. Most of the time, it's not a huge problem if you're doing a shirt like this where it doesn't sit in there for a long period of time. However, if you are using those foil disposable pans, you need to be very aware that they can leak. The holes may not be real big, but if you continue to use them over time, they will start to form leaks. If I use one of those, I normally will place it inside of a plastic container so that if it does leak, it doesn't get on my floor or my table. I started rinsing the shirt in cold water to rinse the soda ash out of the shirt. Then I'm going to untie the shirt and warm the water up to hot and rinse out any of the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Once I have the shirt well rinsed and the water is running almost clear, I put it into my washing machine along with a little bit of Dharma's textile detergent and wash it using a hot water cycle. And then after I wash and dry the shirt, this is what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? So I really like this one. I like the fact that I didn't do a definite pattern, but instead just kind of made the sinew lines a little bit more random. And I like the way the blues flow into one another. Normally on a shirt like this, I would apply dye to each individual sinew section. And that would make a design on the shirt, and it looks really cool that way. But this time I wanted the design to be a little bit more subtle, for the colors to flow into one another and not really stand out as much. If you're wondering what the pink or purple color is on this shirt, that's coming out of the sapphire blue. I also think I got pretty good color saturation. There's not a lot of big white areas in the shirt. That comes from letting the shirt dry out totally and completely. I think the shirt also looks fairly symmetrical. So when you look at the front side of the shirt, both sides of the front side look pretty much the same, and the same for the back. That's because I centered the shirt before I began tying it. The vertical lines that you see, especially on the front of the shirt, those are coming from the liquid dye that I added in. And honestly, I wouldn't mess with it. I don't think it made a huge difference. I mean, you can see them and it kind of adds a little bit of interest to the front, but you can barely see them on the back. And honestly, I'm not real excited about the two big dark lines going right down the middle of the shirt. I wouldn't have even messed with adding the liquid dye, except that I already had it mixed up, and so I thought I would just go ahead and try it on this shirt. The more I look at it, the sinew designs remind me of the ornateness of like a cathedral. I think it looks really interesting. I like it. So if you guys have enjoyed watching this video and the content of this video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.